Welcome to Movie Postmortem, where we dissect films of all kinds, whether they're good, bad, or those guilty pleasures we just can't quit. I'm Reggie Hill, and I'm joined by my nephew Isaiah Brown. Together, we're here to examine what worked, what didn't, and why we keep coming back for more. So grab your popcorn because no movie is safe from the scalpel on Movie Postmortem. On today's episode, we'll be talking about Sinners, a new movie starring Michael B. Jordan, directed by Ryan Coogler, that is in theaters right now.
And after I got home from the theater, I really wanted to talk about this. On the way home from the theater, I was confused on how I felt about this movie. I had several emotions going through my mind, and I didn't know what I felt about it. And so, literally a day later, I've now come to the conclusion that I actually like this movie.
One of the things that I saw another podcaster who I follow, they posted on Blue Sky after they saw this film was like, finally, there have been a lot of crumbs released earlier this year. Finally, there's a meal. And I think that's the best way to describe this film.
Literally.
It's a meal. You might not like everything on the plate. You might get full before you finish eating, but it's a meal.
Yeah, you might casually scrape away the broccoli with cheese in it, but overall, man, I like this movie.
And so before we dive into it, let me give a short summary of the plot. Trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting for them when they get back.
Yeah, and this movie stars Michael B. Jordan, and it is the debut of Michael C. Jordan, his twin brother, which is I've seen floating around for the last like day now, and I still love it.
That's pretty funny. And so before we get into the nitty gritty the way we do, let's start kind of with our overall opinions about the film and our overall rating. So what do you think about the film and how would you rate it out of 5 stars?
Okay, I like this movie, and I give this a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing that I was about to say. I really like this film. There is a big part of this film that doesn't work for me, and I still really like what's there.
Yeah,
This is a 4 out of 5 star film for me. It's enjoyable, it's very captivating. I think it crosses so many genres, some more successfully than others, but I could not deny that I was thinking about this film for hours after I saw it, and this will be a film that I'll see again in the theater. It's really enjoyable.
I was debating that exact same thing on the way home. I was like, man, I kind of want to see this again now. I don't want to wait for this to come to digital.
Yeah, and I think that's the best thing I can ever say about a movie is if I actually want to watch it again and if I actually do watch it again, even while it's in theaters. That means it really connected with me. I enjoyed the experience of watching it, and that's what I could feel instantly about Sinners.
Yeah, and
I could,
but disclaimer, I have seen a whole bunch of reviews, recent reviews saying like, oh yeah, this movie's like God's gift to mankind. It'll take us to the promised land. It's not that, but I still think it's a very good movie.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, this to me is a meal where there are some parts that I want to scrape off the main dish, but it doesn't, in my mind, make it a bad film or anything like that. It's not a perfect film. I don't think there is any perfect film outside of King Kong, but this is a really good film that I enjoyed. And one of the big things I can say, I love that the director and the writer, he took swings. He took some pretty big swings with different parts of this film. I love that. You've heard me say before, I respect people who take swings.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter if you hit or you strike out. I want you to swing.
yeah.
I want to see that you put effort in. Even if I don't agree with it, even if I don't like how it turned out, I want to see the effort. And he put
Yeah,
effort into this.
I'd rather you give me a roast chicken with salt and pepper, and maybe you try a little bit with the mystery season you got. Then just give me the season that comes to the table. That's what I want. Try a little bit
Exactly.
extra, and that's what he did here. And it's funny
Yeah.
because like on the way home, I was like, man, who directed this movie? This is a whole lot better than I was expecting. And then I was like, oh wait, he made Black Panther. No wonder.
Yeah. When you look at Ryan Coogler's filmography so far, I'd argue that he hasn't missed yet, which is very rare for a director to have only a few films and for all of them to be very successful in terms of what they were going to do. I think Sinners is going to actually be a bigger box office hit than people were expecting.
I hope
It was
so.
packed when I went to see it in IMAX yesterday, and I wasn't expecting that. So I think this is a film that there is an audience for it. I think word of mouth is going to be great. I think at the time of our recording of this, the Rotten Tomatoes ranking is probably somewhere up in the upper 90s,
It
you
it
know?
might fall a little bit later because that's just how
Yeah.
these things work. But it's actually funny because this is actually the first time in my in recent memory that I've seen actually elderly people go to see a movie.
Yeah.
There was a whole lot of silver strands in my theater.
Yeah, and I think that shows kind of the appeal that both Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler have for a variety of different audiences. In my auditorium, it was mostly older people. I was shocked that there were a good number of kids there, and I say shocked because this is an R-rated movie.
I
But I think parents
well
are bringing their kids there.
we'll just chalk that up for irresponsible parenting because
Yeah,
this is not a movie to bring your kids to.
and the auditorium was not all black. It was mostly white and, a good percentage of black people too. And so I think that really shows the appeal of
Yeah,
both the writer director and the kind of lead star.
I did notice that too. I noticed a whole lot of our brothers and a few of our light skinned brothers in my theater as well. Okay, that was our initial impressions of the movie. Why don't you dive in with first your college celebration? Because the moment I got home from the theater, I was like, okay, I want to record this as quick as possible because I want to hear what he says about this.
My first call to celebration for the film is Michael B. Jordan. He does a remarkable job playing twin brothers whose nicknames are Smoke and Stack.
Which is
They are,
hilarious.
which is hilarious. It's great nicknames. They're very different. They have some similarities,
Yeah, they
but
are
he plays.
twins, but
They are twins.
one's the businessman and the other one's the public relations. That's how I'll put it.
Yeah. They're both very serious, both very violent if necessary. But I kind of looked at them as kind of an angel and the devil, but both down to business and ready to kind of rock and roll in terms of violence if it comes to it at the drop of a pin. Both kind of very charismatic in different ways. And he has to carry the story as both of these brothers who are, separated at different points. And he does a fantastic job of really instilling in the characters two different kind of perspectives. One of the brothers is kind of the protective one is kind of the bad boy, and I really just felt the entire time that I really not only enjoyed seeing the more charismatic side of, Smoke or Stack, but really I understood them. I was rooting for them. I really just enjoyed his portrayal of these two different brothers. So much so at certain points I was like, all right, that's him. That's the same guy. He just does a really good job of making them that different enough that you really believe that these are two different brothers and you understand why one acts one way and why the other one acts like a different way. And without him really grounding this film, I don't think it works. So you have to buy that these are brothers who have a very kind of shady past,
Yeah, I will admit this is probably a problem with me. Halfway through the movie, when things start really popping off, I forgot which one was which. I'll be honest with you. So I was like, wait, which one was that one? Wait, he's outside. Wait, who's this one?
And part of me thought eventually, like, well, do they have to be twins? Not really. There's nothing in the story that says that they essentially have to be twins.
Yeah,
You just really have two brothers
I'm
who
almost
are.
yeah. Honestly, this I feel like this movie works with twins, but I feel like this could just be Michael B. Jordan being one person. You know what I think it is? I'm almost certain that this is Michael B. Jordan be like, hey, Jim Carrey, I can do it too.
Yeah, and there are lots of instances of actors playing multiple roles, and I think the absolute best case is Orphan Black. Orphan Black got to the point where I forgot that they were like, "Oh, Tatiana Maslany, she's the only actress. These are not like five different women. It's just her." So just as a challenge to the actor, I get the idea that that's why he wanted to do this. Both roles are very fun and captivating in different ways, but I just really thought he brought a lot of just real movie star kind of charisma. And it's just a great performance.
Yeah.
I think this is something people will look back on and be like, wow, yeah, I just remember either Smoke or Stack. And that's just a really fun duo that he portrays on
Yeah.
screen.
Well, overall, Michael B. Jordan doesn't really ever have misses.
Yes,
So
exactly. When you look at that, like he doesn't miss. And so when you look at him and Ryan Coogler together, this is just something that they will really be proud of 10, 20 years from now that they put this story and these characters on the
yeah,
screen. This might be a sidebar, but I'll throw it in here. One thing I actually love in this film, as a person who loves Halloween, I walked out thinking, wow, there's some really fun costume potential that I can think of based on the characters in this story. And I just think that's really cool. I'm always looking for black characters for like Halloween, and there are some great
Yeah,
choices.
you've been that one black dude from Jurassic Park for like 5 years now, haven't you?
It's great, Samuel Jackson. But like so I felt like just Smoke and Stack and the other characters in this film, there's some great costume
Yeah,
potential for black
honestly,
people in this
and
film.
especially at the end of the movie when Stack rolls up in that one outfit, I
Yes.
know for a fact I can generally see someone dressing up like that later.
Yeah, so I wanted to just say thank you to Ryan Coogler for creating something that black people will have some great Halloween costumes for. I'm looking forward to what people will have around October.
Here's my next cause of celebration. This is the biggest compliment I can ever give to a horror type movie. I was actually tense while I was watching it.
Yeah, this film does a remarkable job of being tense, but not going for kind of traditional jump scares. And I really like that. And I was
Yeah,
really trying to figure out how to describe the types of scares they go for. It's more like they cut away before what you're afraid is going to happen is going to happen.
yeah.
And I think that was remarkably effective.
It's kind of like them trying to reinvent a jump scare, kind of.
Yes, it's like one of the scenes that I really like. You see one of the guys who's serving as a bouncer at the club's name is Cornbread. He went to take like a pee break, and you hear voices, or he's hearing voices. It's the head vampire Remick kind of just toying with him. You don't see Remick, you see his eyes, and there were like fireflies lighting up in the background, but you occasionally see Remick's red eyes. And you're just waiting for Remick to like jump out and bite the guy or something you know is coming. It doesn't happen. You just hear Remick say something like peekaboo, and then you're waiting for it, then it cuts away.
Yeah,
And it's like it's so tense, but you don't get the payoff. So I think it really kind of keeps you amped up. And that's how like the last half of the film is like you're always waiting for that shoe to drop. But generally they don't drop it. So that you're always really tense about when is it gonna happen.
yeah. That's my biggest compliment I can ever give to a horror movie. But now, being fair, let me tell you why I wasn't tense anymore during the movie. We're being scary. Let's have a musical number while we're at it, while we're dancing around in a circle.
Yeah. And I would say that's one of the biggest thing that's probably gonna divide people about this film.
Yeah,
I would almost say it's a musical.
I wasn't prepared for how much singing there actually was.
When you think about kind of the genre this falls into, I have trouble really describing it as a horror film. It embraces horror elements towards the end, but I don't think it has enough horror to really classify it as a horror film.
It's kind of
It's more
it's more like an action thriller, isn't it?
it's more like a drama,
Or a drama thriller, if you will.
yeah, that has musical elements. And this is where I had to actually look up what the term is called. So this film uses diegetic sound. So diegetic sound is any sound, singing, music that the characters on screen can actually hear. A musical uses non-diegetic sound. So when people in musicals sing, you really are supposed to understand they're expressing themselves to you, the audience, but they're not actually stopping to sing, in the actual narrative of the story. Here in the film, they use music a lot. You see choirs singing, you see people playing at the club, the juke joint, and it's really when the film gets into the second half where even the vampires, when they're outside, they're singing. They might be singing a folk song, doing Irish jig and singing. It's a musical that just uses diegetic sound in that way. I think that works really well if you go along for the ride and you're into it. If not, you'll say, well, I don't actually need that. It could just be a regular horror film. I'd argue that you could say that this film was already good enough in the beginning that you don't even need the supernatural element. It's just a very captivating story about these two guys coming back home to try to open this club, which is in many ways, for reasons we'll talk about later, doomed to fail. And
Yeah.
then something supernatural happens. This film is clearly influenced by at least probably four other films. Some people will say, well, this is just a remix of other films, and so it shouldn't be considered that great. I don't think that's something I will hold against the film. The film that he cites as kind of his first influence is From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh,
I've
I can see
written
that.
I've written so many different ways about how great that story is, and it has the same exact pros and cons as Sinners. The beginning of the story is so captivating, even if the supernatural twist involving vampires didn't happen, you still enjoy the story.
You know what? I'll say this: there are only so many original ideas in this world. You can dress up an idea to make it look different, but sometimes it's just an imitation of another idea. So As long as the end result is good, I say shut up and just enjoy it.
Yeah. You see, the other film that I think most people will compare this to is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That film, the use of blues music, the use of that kind of Southern Gothic cinematography and location, that's clearly an influence on this film. And much like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I think this is a film where not only is the movie going to be successful, the soundtrack itself is going to sell a lot just because people are going to love hearing the music, the
Brother.
different styles, the influence. And when even you look at Oh Brother, We're Off Now with the Klan involvement, I think that's something that's clearly, an influence that Ryan Coogler had. And I absolutely love that you can see the nods to Oh Brother, Where Art Thou in this film as
Brother,
well.
I have been refreshing my feed every like 2 hours. Just see when the Sinners soundtrack goes up on the internet.
Yeah.
It is going in my playlist. I do not care. Especially that guitar lick that played over and over in the movie. I loved that.
Yes. And that's where we can't kind of talk about the music in this film without talking about the soundtrack and the score. To me, if I were to actually probably recut this, the biggest college celebration for me in the film is the music. This is a film where music drives the story, and music actually is so central to how you experience the film. I recommend to all listeners, you should have already seen the film by now if you're listening to our podcast, but if you rewatch it, see it in the biggest theater. If you have IMAX, if you have Dolby, somewhere that has great sound. The sound design is intentionally used in this film to really convey that communal feeling that music gives you when you hear it.
Yeah.
That it's just really remarkable, and it's designed to be listened to in something that has a great, unbelievable bass system and that true surround sound experience.
Yeah. And this is coming from a guy who has ear issues.
Yes. The soundtrack is just the heartbeat of the story. They so effectively use bass in the theater that I think a lot of directors don't actually think about how they want to do that. So it's a music driven movie, it's a diegetic musical. That's what I really love about it. It makes sense in the story and it's really well done.
You could have told this entire story without vampires, and it still would have been a good movie.
Yeah, that's where I think the interesting thing that some people will say is that this film is kind of three different films all
Yeah,
together.
I had that
And
thought
some
down the
pe-
way home. I was thinking, like, man, this movie had a whole lot of ideas to it.
and some people might say that any of those three versions that you would pick, the film would be better if you only picked that version alone. I think the three films are the film about the brothers coming back home, trying to open up a juke joint, dealing with local Klan members. That's kind of a clear cut
Yeah,
drama.
that's one part of the movie. The next part of the movie is Preacher Boy trying to make a name for himself.
Yeah, I think there is a separate story about a horror themed, you kind of supernatural vampire element. I think actually that's the least, you know, fleshed out story in my opinion. And then another story that I think you need to toss into is like this the whole thing just being a traditional musical. It wouldn't shock me at any point in time if they actually just broke out in the song singing in a non-diegetic fashion like a musical.
Yeah,
I can see this as being a flat out musical as well.
but again, it had a reason for it, and now it was so great.
And kind of the theory that I think people will kind of play with is whether or not it would have been a better film if the director, chose to eliminate some of those components. I don't actually think that that's necessary.
I mean,
So
I would watch that version of the movie too if it existed.
yeah.
Just to make sure we understand that. But like I said, the supernatural elements of this movie they are a good add on to this.
Okay, and so we've given our overall impression. And so before we start our plot rundown, let's take a quick commercial break, then we'll come back to discuss more about Sinners. Looking for a place where the drinks are cold, the music is hot, and no one bats an eye if your date has claws? Come on down to the Howling Wolf, the only juke joint on this side of the bayou where the monsters are always welcome. Whether you're undead, unearthly, or just unusually hairy, we've got a seat for you. Live music every Friday night featuring DJ Fang and the Night Howlers, DJ Ooze, and our house band Swamp Stomp Revival. And for a limited time, use promo code POSTMORTEM for 15% off the cover charge. The Howling Wolf, where things go bump and grind in the night. Okay, we're back. So now let's kind of dive into the actual plot of Sinners. So in 1932, there are two twin brothers, Smoke and Stack. They are World War I veterans. They're returning to the Mississippi Delta after several years in Chicago. They have apparently stolen money from the Chicago gangsters. We get the kind of backstory that they used to run with Al Capone in some way. And when the story starts, we see them buying a sawmill from a racist landowner named Hogwood. They want to start a juke joint for the black community. This is something they want to open up that will be for us, by us, as they
Yeah.
say.
And number one, I'm almost certain that Smokestack knew that there was a problem immediately. Because, first of all, his name was Hogwood? Really? That's the first red flag right there. But yeah, it's funny because, like, the moment they bought the place off the guy, they were ready to shoot him, too, right there, while, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you get the idea. These are people who don't trust anybody. The white guy, he's already got his gun clearly showed in his waistband when he's talking to them. So when he kind of intimidates them a little bit, they let him know, like, yeah, you're outnumbered here. And, push comes to shove. We're ready to rock and roll with the violence at the drop of a pin. So you get the general idea. This is a very uneasy alliance that they have where they simply tell him flat out, here's the money for the sawmill, the equipment of the property. If we ever see you or your clan member friends on our property, we're going to shoot you on sight.
Yeah,
And one of the things I really like about this film is that they keep portraying the obviously racist people as always say, oh, what do you mean? There's no clan here. We all believe in harmony and equality, and they're flat out lying.
yeah. It's, this feels somewhat prejudiced, but you can pretty much see it in their eyes when they're lying like that through their teeth.
Yeah. And so Smoke and Stack are our main kind of protagonists in the film, but there's really the third protagonist who is essentially the main arc that we follow in the story. And this is their cousin Sammy. He is a sharecropper, an inspiring guitarist and blues singer. He, like many artists, when you read kind of their history and their stories, is the son of a pastor who doesn't like his son singing in these juke joints, singing blues music. He wants his son to avoid these places
Yeah,
and to
he
just
wants him to
stick to church stuff.
he wants him to sing the Lord's music and stop being around those sin traps, as he called it. Well, it turns out if he actually listened to him, he would avoid a whole lot of that.
And so the twins, they come to the church and recruit Sammy, who is their cousin. And what they essentially want to do is to open this juke joint and set it up for its grand opening, which will be the same day. They are really pressed for time, so they have to recruit a singer. So they grab Sammy, they grab other musicians, they have to get signage, they have to get the lighting done, they have to get signs for the door. We've already said that they have to get catfish.
Yeah,
So you get the idea that they really have to get a lot done, and they recruit a very nice group of characters along the way.
yeah. They group up. They group up previous flings. They group up friends of previous flings and whatnot. They group up Cornbread, who is best character in this movie. He's fight
Yeah.
me.
And this is where I think Sinners really does a great job. The supporting cast is excellent. The first act of the film takes its time in making sure we get to know these characters, we get to know their history, we get to see them interact. We have to care about these people if we're going to care about whether they live or die in the end.
Yeah, and
And
so just while we're on this point, I just want to throw this out here because this is something I genuinely feel. I for moments of this movie, I kind of felt like I was sinning by watching it.
yeah, this is a film that is R-rated. It plays very strongly. I wouldn't describe it as erotic. That was the first word I thought when I was watching. I would say it's sensual. It plays with the sensuality between several of the characters, their adult interactions. In many ways, like you said, you could read this as to kind of what the pastor was describing. These are sinful people. These are wicked people, or at least they're very carnal in terms of their relationships.
Yeah,
And you see Sammy kind of start as an innocent person, an innocent kid.
and
He's
then
taught,
once he's in there, it just goes all downhill.
yeah, he's taught some carnal, yeah,
He's taught some things that would not fly with Jesus.
Yes, by Stack. You see him later use that, and you see him really coming into his own as a sinner, as his father kind of warned him would happen.
This is a genuine question I want to ask you while we're here. Do
Sure.
you feel like that actually added to this movie, or you feel like we could have cut that out entirely?
Yeah, but to me, I felt that that was essential, at least showing some what the pastor would at least describe as sin. So I thought like that was a necessary thing that the story needed to have. I don't think it got too far. They describe various things. There's actually no nudity. There might be some slight nudity in one scene that's actually not a sexual scene.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't think it went too far in that regard. So
Yeah.
I didn't mind. And I actually think it was essential for them to kind of have at least what I would describe as that sensual kind of
Yeah.
element to
And
the
the reason
story.
and the reason I'm bringing this up right now is because they're very liberal with their wordings and
Yes.
their lovemaking. Like I'm almost I didn't time this because I didn't care enough, but I'm almost certain that the first one of those scenes happens like 30 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, I actually like that. There is some great um crude dialogue in this film, and the way it's delivered, the way it's written, it's very quotable. We have a podcast rating that we will not cross here, so we can't repeat it, but I really love the dialogue the way it was written in this film. So it's one of the strong points
Yeah.
of the film in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not like Deadpool where he just says crude things for the sake of saying crude things. They're just casually talking like this, and I'm just like, huh? Wait, what did they say? Did I hear that right?
Yes. And so some people will be shocked by some of the language that Haley Steinfeld uses. If you're only familiar with her from a lot of her other kind of teenage films or from her role in Marvel as like Hawkeye, you're going to be shocked by the things that she says in this film, but she plays the character well. And so maybe we can move on to introduce her character. So she plays Mary. So she is Stack's ex-girlfriend. She's a person who passes for white, but I get the feeling that she was supposed to be a 1/8 black person, which a lot of, those people existed back
Yeah,
then.
and again, 1930s.
Yeah, so she's a woman who you get the idea she doesn't consider herself white. She says that multiple times. She's married to a white man only because Stack, when him and his brother left, she was kind of left in the lurch and she didn't know what to do. She is the person who was left behind once they left. Smoke, his ex-wife, Annie, she was left in the lurch when they left. When Smoke left, I get the idea that they had had a child who had just passed away. He left his wife there. And so you get the idea that both of these brothers have left people behind when they went on to kind of fight wars and run with gangsters in Chicago. And they're coming back to a town that is afraid of them, that remembers the kind of troublemakers that they were,
Yeah.
but also kind of respects them.
To describe Smokestack, I'd say they're pretty much they're people that run on chaos, essentially.
Yes.
They're I imagine slow moments don't really exist for them. And if they do exist, they probably don't like it very much.
Chaos but principle. Smoke, who is the more principled of the two, still shoots two people for trying to steal from his truck just because he can't have the walk away with no repercussions and telling people that they almost stole from him.
Yeah.
That's the kind of principled person he is.
Yeah, and maybe I'm too nice, but I would just let them go after the first shot.
That I think was my favorite moments in the film is seeing just the kind of principle that they both have. So again, it's not really that one is an angel, one is a devil. It's kind of like, well, one is devil chaos, one is a little bit more of an orderly devil, but they're both devils. And so I think one of the important story elements we have to introduce here is when Smoke goes to visit his ex-wife or current wife, I don't know if they ever truly got divorced, Annie. He talks a lot about what she does. So you see her kind of selling roots to some kids. She has like a little store on the
Yeah,
plantation.
she's essentially the voodoo lady.
Yeah, she's the root voodoo hoodoo lady of the local plantation. She's accepting plantation money. That's one of the nice recurring things in the film. They really introduced the fact that in a lot of these plantations back then, they had their own kind of system, their own economy. So they didn't have traditional American dollars and coins. They had
Yeah,
plantation money, like things like wooden nickels. You've ever heard that phrase? It's like, oh, this is money that you can use at this one place, but it's no good anywhere else.
and again,
Eh,
1930s. Some of these plantation owners probably didn't even want to pay them.
Exactly. And so he hates the way that she accepts these, you know, bills and coins from these plantation owners and the people who live there. He also hates the fact that she still believes in this voodoo. And this is the main reason is because she says, like, well, why didn't your voodoo protect our kid from dying? She says she doesn't know. But you see that around his neck, he still wears this mojo bag that she gave him. And she says, oh, how do you know that mojo isn't real? Maybe I've been protecting you and your brother this whole time, and that's what's been keeping you safe. They make up.
Yeah, they make
She,
up, then sexy
yeah,
times happen.
and she agrees to go to the juke joint and help them sell food for the night. They grab another guy, a pianist, Delta Slim, played beautifully by Delroy Lindo, fantastic
Yeah,
actor.
he was amazing.
He did such a great job making you just understand who Delta Slim was as a person. He's a man who plays harmonica, plays piano, probably an alcoholic,
Yeah,
knows he
he
doesn't have many days ahead of him.
he lives by the drink and he'll die by that drink.
Yeah, and he just says that this is a simple life, it's good for him. One of my favorite moments in the film is when Delta Slim and Sammy and Stack are driving past the guys working on the chain gang, and Delta Slim tells the story about how he was once in a group, they had some money, and what happened when one of the members of the band tried to go off on his own. It was essentially just lynched for absolutely no reason. As he's telling the story, there is great non-diegetic sound where you don't ever see a flashback to the
Yeah,
events of that
well, you can
story, but you
hear it.
hear it. It is so powerful. And as Delta Slim is just getting emotional while he's telling the story, then you just see him kind of just stop, start humming to himself, and almost like just like let's just sing and play some blues music. And you really get the idea, like that's what the blues is, that's what the music is, that's the soul of the music. And I think that moment in the film is actually probably the second most powerful moment to me in the entire film. I absolutely love it. Delroy Lindo, fantastic in this film. The other person who they recruit is a woman named Pearline, who they just meet at the trade station where they're kind of picking up Delta
Yeah,
Slim,
just a
who,
random occurrence.
yeah, she's sings sometimes. You get the idea that Sammy knows her from some, brief interaction they might have had in the past. She's married to another man, but clearly there's some chemistry and some interest there. So she agrees to, go to that club in the evening, and we
Yeah,
kind of have the group of people who are going to be our main protagonists in the story.
yeah, and hey, Center Boy, there's rules for married women. Come on, man.
Again, I think that's why the focus on the carnal acts, the sex, is essential because, as far as I recall, both women who we see in sexual relation in this story are married to other men. Because Pearline is married to someone else, and she later has sex with Sammy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
What's her name was with someone else, isn't
Mary,
she?
yeah, Mary is married to someone else, and she later has sex with Stack because they're like rekindling their romance. So they're true sinners once they get to the juke joint.
Mm.
And so now that we have all of our main characters heading towards the juke joint, this is when things kind of get interesting. And I love the cinematography on this. You just see a house sitting kind of in a patch of dirt in the field. Then you see a guy seemingly dropping out of the sky. White man, it looks like his back is smoking and blistering. And he comes up into a house and he bangs on the door. Two white people with rifles aimed at him are like, what's going on here? They clearly don't trust strangers, and tell him to kind of, go about his way, on his business. He tells them some sob story about the Choctaw Native Americans hunting him. They agreed to let him inside. The Choctaw Native Americans later try to tell the couple, this man isn't who you think they are. The sun is going down. So the couple decide to, keep the Native Americans from coming in. They say, okay, good luck with this. You later find out that this guy, whose name is Remick, has killed the husband. Seemingly, he's going to kill the wife. And then this is the first real indication there's something weird happening, supernatural, in this part of Mississippi.
Yeah, and I have a quick confession to make here. Maybe well, I kind of figured, but I didn't really accept that they were vampires until she outright said they're vampires.
Yes.
I just kept having moments where I was like, wait, oh, they have fangs. Oh, that's weird. Oh, wait, they can't just walk inside the establishment. That's also weird. Wait, are they? No, but vampires aren't cool anymore, right?
And I think
They are vampires. Oh, wait, this is cool.
Yeah, and I think that's where again the folklore and mythology around this point in time is so important to the story, and I love how it's written in. You don't get confirmation that they're vampires till much later in the story. We'll get to that. At this point, you can understand that there's something weird here. But even later, when they encounter these creatures, they seem to be supernatural. What Annie, Smoke's former wife says, she keeps calling them haints because, like, I don't know if a lot of people understand what a haint is. A haint is kind of black vernacular is what they would have called something that was a haunt. Basically, she's saying they're ghost. And is it until later she realizes, oh, these aren't, and she says like, oh, it's not a haint, it's a vampire. Once she realizes they're allergic and feel pain from garlic, is when she actually puts two and two together. And then even the audience was like, what? They're vampires? Because up until then, she keeps kind of calling them haints. And I didn't know if people picked up on that word and what it actually meant. It's kind of a general ghoul ghost type of thing. So like that's when you talk about voodoo or hoodoo, what
Yeah,
they were actually referred to as people being haints.
yeah.
Like it's actually a ghost type of thing.
Another confession. When she kept saying that, I thought she was just describing white white folk.
Yeah.
So I was so I was like, oh, she's just throwing that word around. I wonder what that means.
Yeah, no, a haint is a very different thing. And that's how I got the title for this episode, Haint Misbehaving, based on the phrase ain't misbehaving.
That's beautiful. I love that.
And so once we get to the juke joint, it's going really well.
Yeah,
People are, having
people are
fun.
dancing, having fun. Preacher boy, he's singing. Uh, what's his name? He's on the piano. He's playing, and we're doing good. But then what's her name shows up at the front door, and it's that moment I didn't really like. I somewhat forgot that we were doing supernatural there. I thought we were gonna do like a white woman in a black establishment, bad things happen. That's where I thought we were going. So me in my theater seat was like thinking, oh, don't you let her in. Please don't let her in. Bad things gonna happen. Don't let her in, please.
Yes, and that's the thing that I really like about the story. You don't need the supernatural element for it to have gone disastrously, like, kind of wrong. Mary, who is 1/8 white, but is perceived or passes as white, comes to the juke joint. She wants to get in. She wants to rekindle her relationship with Stack. They know this is trouble. Even if Mary is considered family, her mom raised Smoke and Stack when their mother died, but they realize, look, Mary, if white people see you here, if they see you touching, kissing, interacting with these black people, they might kill you and then just indirectly decide they want to kill us because you are here. She doesn't want to leave, they let her stay, but you get the idea that part of what could have just gone wrong is simply the fact that the white people show up and cause havoc to what was otherwise a very peaceful, fun black gathering.
Yeah,
So I think that's a very interesting kind of sidebar conversation where you could say you didn't need vampires, just the presence of the white people was enough to create conflict in this story.
I would watch the crap out of both of those versions of that movie.
And so this is when the story gets really interesting. As the narrator in the beginning of the story said, some people possess the musical talent to really connect us with our ancestors and the future. And you get the idea that Sammy, aka
Yeah,
Preacher Boy, is one of those people. So, what you see in the scene as Sammy starts to play, you see that the scene, which is beautifully shot in one continuous shot, around him, where you see all the people of the juke joint in 1932 dancing, enjoying the music. Then you see, he's like, wait, that looks like somebody in tribal attire from Africa. Oh, wait, that's somebody who looks like Jimi Hendrix playing an electric guitar. Oh, wait, that's a DJ, like
yeah. You
mixing and scratching on a record. Oh, wait, that's somebody twerk dancing like in the corner. And this is like, as you go through the club, you see like the melding of the rhythms of the music from all these different eras come together in a way that some people will not like. But I understand what he was going for with this
yeah.
moment.
I
It's
just
really showing.
I understood it, but I was caught off guard by that aspect of it.
Yes. And I would say, like, that's where the type of anachronistic imagery and character to show up in this moment, some people say, like, oh, well, that took it a step too far. You didn't really need to do that. it's a big swing. Whether it works for you or not, that's each person, but you get exactly what they're going for. They introduce how you see the history of black music in its past, in its future. A couple of characters we did introduce, two Chinese shop owners, Grace and Bo, they're also there. You see their Chinese heritage and characters and dance incorporating with the kind of theme that's going on with the black music. And this literally melts the roof off the building in terms of the imagery that you see,
And
and then
again,
it pans.
none of this is actually happening, but that's just what the effect looks like.
That's what it looks like, and then it pans away, and you see Remick surrounded by the two people that he encountered earlier, just taking this all in, and you see Remick, the head vampire, his eyes just glowing red with envy, and this is where the story kind of kicks into the second act.
Yeah, this is where we go into overdrive.
And so at this point in time, Sammy's song has captured the attention of Remick and the other two white people, Bert and Joan. They show up at the door, dressed seemingly as just regular musicians, and they tell the club, bouncer, they want to just come in since these are white people and they're, hesitant to let white people on the premises for many reasons. They go get smoke and stack. They don't let them in, and this is a very tense standoff. I love this scene in the movie. You just have three seemingly harmless white people outside with like guitars.
Yeah.
You're worried that violence is going to ensue, and then they just proceed to sing like a folk song.
I was getting ready to say, like, this scene, the scene is tense overall for multiple reasons. One, three white people in an all black establishment. That's a big no no. Number one. Number two, it was previously shown that those two white people, they were Klansmen.
Yes.
So that's
And
tense moment number two there. And number three, you get the idea that no matter what they say, these people are not leaving.
yeah, and so they're very polite. They talk about equality. They talk about not wanting to be turned away because of their skin color. But the establishment owners, they're like, no, we don't want you inside. That could cause a lot of trouble. Like they're essentially, again, they're just talking practically. If something were to happen to you, white people, it could cause trouble for us. So it's better for us not to let you in.
Yeah,
They turn them away. They go back inside, and this is when kind of the practical reality of the economic situation for these black business owners come into play. They realize because a good number of the people there are using these plantation dollars and coins, they don't have enough money to make this a successful business. They run out of money in a couple of months. They need the money that the white people are offering. They decide that, Mary, since she's white, she can go out there and talk to them and just see if they're, good people. Mary goes out to speak to the trio alone. They talk to her about, they can save her. They're really there to offer her salvation. In addition to anything, what seems to be at first very, innocent, nice conversation turns very weird when Mary notices Remick. His eyes are glowing red and he's drooling. She quickly gets up, points a gun at him, and is like, "Look, you guys need to go back to wherever you came from." She turns to walk away, and then we just see Remick seemingly just start to take off in flight up in the air, and then the scene cuts. We don't really see what happens to Mary at all at that point.
yeah. And I was pretty much holding my breath for that entire scene because the moment she went out there, I was like, oh no, whoop, she's dead. Here we go. Here's the climax of this. Here's the climax of the movie. Here's where we get started. Because honestly,
Yes.
I don't think anybody could. I don't think anybody could watch this and be like, "Oh yeah, she's fine."
Yeah. And this is when the rules of vampires come into play. Most people, if you have a basic understanding of vampires, at least American vampire lore, understand a couple of rules about them. One of the biggest being that you have to invite a vampire into your home in order for them to be able to come inside. When you see Mary, she's coming back to the club. She seems completely normal, but she says to the bouncer, cornbread is at the door, like, "Oh, you gonna move aside so I can come in?" And he says, "Oh yeah, sure, Mary, come on in." So he's given her permission to actually enter into the establishment. This is going to set up everything else that happens in the rest of the story.
Yeah, and here's another big plus with this movie. I really like what they did with the vampires in this movie. Who are like even though they have that big nerf of just like, okay, you need to invite me in order for us to do this, they're clever with it. They're not
Yes.
just like won't you let me in? Please let me in. There's something like stupid like that. They're clever with their invites. Like, okay, you gonna let me in so I can go see Stack or whatever, or like it's like, man, let me in so I can get my money and I'll go home and stuff like that.
Yeah, and here in the story, and this is not even something I think is a deep metaphor, it's pretty on the surface. What you have in this film is a story about cultural vampires who are actually vampires. So, what the vampires want is Sammy. What they want is that black music. They have to be let into the establishment so they can take that music, so they can take that and make it their own. Kind of the message is if you didn't let white people take your stuff, things would be better. So, I think that that's a message that's really like kind of on the sleeve of the film, and it kind of makes sense. They're pointing out, like, right, these people are going to give you money. That's a seduction. That's a temptation that they're going to offer you. They're going to give you money to take what's yours, but you got to let them in. You have to let them come in to take your music, to, take your sound. They'll give you money, but it's not going to work. In a speech that Smoke gives to Sammy, he says, like, no, entertainers aren't happy. You should stop this. This is a dirty, sinful business. Leave that to us. You're a good person. You don't want any part of this. So I think, Ryan Coogler wrote pretty, on the nose when he thinks about a lot of stuff that's happened in the music industry. And again, just that very idea that a lot of cultural appropriation is done by people on the outside who says, oh, I absolutely love that. Let me in so I can take it. When Mary gets back in, things kind of go haywire. She ends up seducing Stack, bites him. The
well,
rest
she
of the
well she does more than bite. She's like tears out his jugular. I
Yes,
think.
yeah, she's killing him. They walk in on Mary and Stack together. They see her covered in blood, biting him. Smoke is just shocked by this. He shoots Mary, dead. She gets up quickly, says, we're going to kill all of you, runs outside while they're still shooting her. And then Stack is dead. And Smoke is just holding his brother while he dies. This is when Annie, knowing everything about Hoodoo and Haints, she starts to put two and two together where she's like, look, you need to let your brother go. We need to get him outside. Smoke doesn't want that to happen. He locks his brother in the room. Then they start to understand that they're dealing with not just a Haint, they're actually dealing with vampires. And this moment comes when Stack comes back to life. He busts out of the room. Annie has gotten the pickled garlic that she was using in the kitchen, thrown it on Stack, causing him to run out. And that's when she had the great reveal where she's like, yeah, this is not a Haint, it's a vampire.
Yeah, and thank goodness for her for saving the day for a little bit with soul food, pretty much.
Yeah.
How about that?
And so this is the second kind of big pivot point moment, I believe, in the film where either people are going to be on board with it or you're not. Just like from Dusk Till Dawn, you would say, okay, you had a good story already, and then you added a supernatural vampire element. Either you're on board for that ride or you're not. The rest of the film plays out where our protagonists, the rest of the people at the juke joint, they're dealing with vampires. Either you're on board or you're not.
And me, because I love vampires so much, and I pretty much live and breathe vampires at this point. I was all on board with it. So I was like, okay, we're doing this story now. Okay, cool. I like what you had previously, but I like this too. Let's do this.
We're in the third act at this point. It shifts into a very quick vampire story. Annie, she knows how to fight vampires. She gives all the rules in this, timeline or this universe. Garlic obviously works. Sunlight will kill them, a wood stake or silver. They understand that bullets will slow them down, it won't kill them. And what they kind of later learn in a very interesting way is that these vampires seem to share a hive mind. What one of them knows, all of them will know. Remick, the head vampire, since he killed the clan couple earlier in the story, he knows that Smoke and Stack, their juke joint business was doomed from the start. The clan members were just going to kill him the next day. And he's telling them, look, you should let us make you a vampire. We believe in fellowship. You don't have any, chance life here. They won't let you build. They won't be successful. He's essentially trying to tell them, look, you know how these people are. Their races are going to kill you. I'm offering you something so much more. This is why you should become a vampire. And you see Smoke several times really thinking about whether or not this argument makes sense.
Yeah, and then we're saying kumbaya around the campfire. Just I'm pretty sure the point of it was to show that like the okay, we're family, blah 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 whatever, but like it still took me out momentarily.
One of the things that I like, the film starts with blues music. Once the vampires proper are actually introduced, their motif is more of a electric kind of rock guitar. Remick, the head vampire, you later learn he's probably from Ireland and Irish.
Yeah,
So when
he's straight up river dancing over there.
yeah,
I did like his musical number. It's just the scene itself took me away for a minute.
yeah, you really see them having like a outdoor church style revival circle dance to Irish music. And like the logic that Remick gives is something that I found very interesting as it tied into the story. Remick says, yeah, I'm a vampire, true. I can't see my own people. Sammy's ability through his music to connect to his ancestors, like you said, that ancestral plane, like in Black Panther, that's what Remick wants. You get the idea of Remick, and he says in many ways, look, I'm Irish, I'm not American. So you get the idea he's been faking his American accent just to appear more American. He's like, give me your power, give me Sammy, I'll let the rest of you go. You know, give me your stories, I'll give you mine, and we can make something together. Again, essentially, when you look at with American popular music, is that American music is a blend of lots of different musical sources. It's not just black, it's not just white, it's from other places. And I thought from a historical perspective, that was something that was very interesting.
Yeah,
Most people forget that Irish people were considered almost as bad or maybe equally bad as black people at one point in time in this country.
look up how badly Irish people were treated in America. Also,
Yeah, people forget about that sign saying Irish need not apply. So the message, even that Sammy, his perspective is that look, I've lost my people. Part of this whole melting pot culture of America is kind of saying like, look, we're blending all together, but I want to be able to see my people again. That's why the Irish river dancing was important. He's like, this is my heritage, this is my music. I can't connect to that as easily, anymore. I want you to help me have that. The end of the film, you see all of these vampires surrounding the juke joint. They're in unison singing that same song that the vampire trio was
yeah,
singing in the beginning. We kind of skipped a step where lots of people had gotten turned to
yeah.
vampires. They left the club.
Just quick reminder: the juke joint was packed until they sent everyone away. Those vampire people were out there for the whole night. There's an army outside there now.
The end of the film is very fast. One of the things that I wouldn't necessarily consider a true cause of death, but it's an area that
Just
I
an
think is
observation, pretty
an
much.
observation is that this final fight where you see like this rush of vampires come in and attack our protagonist, the kind of fight choreography and how it's blocked, it's very messy.
I
You can't
noticed
really
that
tell
too,
what's going on,
and plus the blood effects weren't that good.
No, they're really bad.
You know what?
It
Here's what it is. I'm almost certain they spent money on all the set dressing, the outfits, and whatnot. So when it came time for that, they were like, let's just make do with what we got here. And
yeah,
again, like I'm not giving him that much flack for this because again, this dude directed Black Panther, still one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, just for the overall premise of it and the cultural importance of it. So you know he can do his stuff, but this is just an unfortunate moment of the movie nonetheless.
yeah, I would say best thing I could say about the final fight is anticlimactic. It moves us to where we need to get with the story, which is that lots of our heroes have been killed, died. Smoke, he has to unfortunately kill his ex-wife Annie after she gets bitten. He's about to kill his brother. At this point in time, Sammy is outside with Remick the Hand Vampire, who was trying to convince Sammy, like, you need to join with us. You know, don't fight back, just let it happen. Sammy says, like, no, I'm not going to do that. He smashes Remick in the head with his guitar, injuring him.
And get on Smokestack for giving him a guitar with silver in it.
Yes, silver guitar, one of their weaknesses. And so just as, things look bleak for Sammy, he's about to, be bitten finally by Remick. You see
Yeah.
that Smoke has come up behind Remick and stabs him, through the heart with a wood stake, killing him.
Yeah, and so at this point in the movie, you're probably thinking to yourself, maybe not thinking overall, but back of your mind is probably thinking, huh, I wonder what time it is right now. And boom, sun's rising, we win.
Yes. One of the very true cause of death I could give to this film is The very convenient. Oh, wait, all the vampires forgot the sun was about to come up. I hate that every time it's done. I talked to you about how much I hated that in Nosferatu,
Yeah,
where
I
it's like,
that
oh man, I forgot what time it was. Guess I'll burn up and die now. That very lazy plot device is here in Sinners.
yeah the blow effects and that right there is that's pretty much about two main causes of death. But let's look at it this way: it didn't work on all of them, which is spoiler alert revealed later. Two of them were actually smart. Well, I don't want to say smart, just not stupid.
Yeah, and so you see Remick burn up in dramatic fashion. He gets sucked up into some kind of like fire tornado as the
And this is something that I thought was incredibly lazy. The fire tornado is there. It cuts back to the two, and then it's gone.
yeah.
I did not like that.
Yeah, and the rest of the vampires just burn up. Sammy is kind of sent on his way by Smoke, who says like he needs to take care of something. Remembering like earlier in the story that the vampire told him the truth about the clan members who were going to come to, take them all out the
Yeah,
next day.
and it's at this moment where Michael B. Jordan just goes back to Killmonger.
Yeah, in the end scene, which I've heard some people say, well, listen, cheers. It's definitely a big moment. You see,
Hey, like you got cheer on me killing clan members. I'm all about that.
yeah.
But okay, maybe okay, not me personally, but you know what I mean. Shut up.
Yeah. To me, it rivaled again another influence I'm sure he had the scene in Inglorious Bastards where you see the soldiers gunning down Adolf Hitler. Like you don't have much more of a true audience cheer moment than some horrible people just getting gunned down. So Smoke kills all the
Yeah,
clan members. He
and
did sustain a fatal wound at the end. That's where the kind of themes of the movie come together. You see Smoke having a vision of the afterlife where his wife and their baby are waiting for him as he, kind of succumbs to his injury. Sammy decides that he's going to keep his guitar. You see him driving off holding just the fragment of the guitar that he has left in a car, and it cuts to 1992, where you see him. He's, elderly. It's clear that he's a popular blues musician, and the film kind of ends, but it takes a long time to end. And this is a thing that I have like kind of a nitpick, and I wish it didn't do this because
yeah, because here's the thing: like once those credits start rolling around, you could leave, and you could still you could have left there.
yeah, because I feel that after they show what you believe are the end credits, where you see elderly Sammy, you get the idea, okay, he went on to be a popular blues musician. He still has the scars on his face that Remick gave him. Then they say, like, written and directed by Ryan Coogler. I'm like, okay, you can leave, but there's still like 10 minutes of the movie left.
Yeah, and like again, I'm all happy to see Preacher Boy. He made a name for himself. He didn't, and he looked like he was happy with his life instead of like how Smokestack said he'll never be happy. He looked happy, and so I was happy for him. But then once we were in that moment, I was like, man, I thought we were done.
Yeah, then the film keeps going, and after his performance, he is visited by Stack and Mary, who you realize, oh, they didn't die. You didn't actually see them burn up with the other vampires. Stack reveals that his brother Smoke couldn't kill him. Smoke just said, "Promise me you'll leave Sammy alone," and he did. And it's in the 1990s now.
Yeah,
You see them
again,
dressed very 90s.
and again, even though we said how what's her name described vampires, it's still imitating. It's still imitating Stack, pretty much his brother. So that bond, even though it's pretty much fake, it's still there, and so that's why they left Sammy alone.
Yes, I got what they were going for with this ending. You see Stack saying, I can turn you to a vampire, you can live forever, you're probably gonna die soon.
No,
Sammy,
they don't even say probably. He says
yeah,
straight out.
yeah, you don't have long. He actually smells like he's smelling death on him or something. Says you don't have long. Sammy says, no, I'm good. And Stack and Mary leave, and then before Sammy kind of confesses that that last day before the sun went down at the juke joint was like the most fun he ever had in his life. And you see Stack say pretty much the same thing. They were truly free that day before
Yeah,
everything
it's
went
kind of
like the chaos.
it's kind of like if you look up interviews of people that used to be around for the Roaring Twenties, It's like they say like if he had a choice. I remember this years later. I don't remember who said it, but like he just pretty much said like, oh, if I had a choice between going to heaven and back to the run 20s, I would go back to the 20s without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's really kind of the message of the film. There was freedom that they had, even with everything that was going wrong that
And
day,
yeah,
because of the
and
idea that they had.
yeah, and again, they looked like they were having fun before everything went to crap. Because like it was even I was even in the moment while they were like when Pearline was singing, they were having a good time. I was like, okay, man, this does look kind of fun. I kind of wish I was there for this, but then I remembered, oh wait, I'm black. I won't be here for this time period. But it was the overall fun they were having was strong enough to where I momentarily forgot that I don't want to go anywhere near the 1930s.
Exactly. And that's kind of where our film ends.
We're kind of all over the place with this episode, but I think our impression of this movie still stands. We like this movie. We have our problems with it, and I very much recommend you go watch this. Just again, don't bring children, for the love of God.
It's a film that will have moments that will divide the audience, and I absolutely love that about it because it's a meal. It's a meal where I might not want one of the sides or I might not like the topping on one part of the dish, but it's a full meal. You will want to digest it afterwards. I wanted to see it immediately again after I saw it. It deserves to be seen in a big theater with surround sound. The use of music, which drives the plot, is just amazing. Just check it out. I think this is the type of film, whether you like it or not, you won't feel that you wasted your time watching it.